Mangwanani mwalelepo vukenjani klekwas vanawe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Today is Monday, the 6th of September, and from Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. you can expect us here bringing you the news as promised. My name is Ashwin Bedi, and as usual, we are here with Aina Raiza Kweo.
Happy Monday, everyone. Today is a Read a Book Day. The first celebration of Read a Book Day was around the end of the first decade of the 2000s and was almost certainly the idea of a librarian, probably one who was encouraging youngsters to read a book. It's important to read a book.
Absolutely.
I've made it my choice to read a book every month.
It's so important.
Yeah, and here's more on that. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories this morning, Tigray aid situation worsening by day, warn UN humanitarians. The aid crisis in Ethiopia's Tigray region is worsening, the UN said on Thursday, with stocks of relief aid, cash and fuel running very low or very depleted. Since the 12th of July, less than 10% of the trucks that should have reached desperate populations affected by months of fighting have managed to get through, according to the UN Aid Coordination Office, OCHA. Humanitarian partners estimate that 100 trucks of food, non-food items and fuel need to enter Tigray every day to sustain an adequate response. The UN agency pointed out that around 7 million is needed every week to sustain humanitarian operations in Tigray, equivalent to 300 million birr of local currency, including staff salary, local procurement and cash-based assistance. But only 47 birr has been bought since the 12th of July.
In our second story, heavy gunfire heard in Guinea capital, Conakry. Heavy gunfire was heard in the center of the Guinea capital, Conakry, on Sunday morning, according to a Reuters witness and videos shared on social media. A military source said the only bridge connecting the mainland to the Kaloum neighborhood, which houses most of the ministries and the presidential palace, had been sealed off, and many soldiers, some heavily armed, were posted around the palace. A senior government official said President Alpha Conde was unharmed, but gave no further details. A witness told Reuters he saw a civilian with gunshot wounds.
Worst Tripoli fighting in a year shows limits of Libya's peace push. Fighting broke out in Tripoli early on Friday between rival armed forces, the heaviest clashes in the Libyan capital since the conflict between eastern and western factions paused a year ago. A resident of Salah al-Din district in southern Tripoli said shooting began at about 2:30 a.m. and continued through the morning with medium and light weapons. Conflict in Tripoli between the armed groups who vie to control both territory and state institutions would further undermine the prospect of December's election as part of a plan to end a decade of chaos, violence, and division.
Somalia's Puntland sends troops to fight al-Shabaab in neighboring state. Somalia's semi-autonomous region of Puntland said on Friday it sent forces to the neighboring region of Galmudug to help the military there push al-Shabaab Islamist militants out of a strategic town they captured last month. Al-Shabaab fighters last month attacked a military base in Galmudug town of Amara and took control of it after battling with government special force units known as Danab and Darawish. Amara is a strategic town that lies on the route to the coastal town of Haradere, another al-Shabaab stronghold. Al-Shabaab has been fighting in Somalia for years in an attempt to topple the central government and establish its own rule based on its strict interpretation of Sharia or Islamic law. The group often carries out gun and bomb attacks targeting both military and civilians as targets.
UNHCR gravely concerned about systematic sexual violence in DR Congo's Tanganyika's province. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, is gravely concerned about incidents of widespread and systematic sexual violence against Congolese women and girls perpetrated by armed groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo's Tanganyika province, where thousands have been internally displaced this year. More than 23,000 people have been displaced since May in northern Tanganyika, Kangolo territory alone, according to local authorities. Most have fled insecurity multiple times in the past 3 months. In just the past 2 weeks, humanitarian partners in the Kongolo and Mbulula health zones have recorded 243 incidents of rape, 48 of which involved minors and in 12 different villages. The incidents took place between December 2020 and July 2021. The actual figures are thought to be even higher, as reporting of gender-based violence remains a taboo in most communities.
Next up, thousands of Boko Haram fighters surrender in Nigeria. The Nigerian military says nearly 6,000 Boko Haram members, including commanders, fighters, and their families, have surrendered to the authorities in the last couple of weeks. The mass surrender of the members of the militant group is a result of the intense military offensive in the northeast of the country, the army says. The death of Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau in May could be another reason. The Nigerian authorities say they are now profiling those who have surrendered for possible de-radicalization and rehabilitation. But some Nigerians are skeptical about reintegrating the former fighters back into society, citing possible risks. According to the UN, the insurgency by Boko Haram that began in 2009 has caused the death of more than 300,000 people and the displacement of millions of others in Nigeria and several other countries in the Lake Chad region.
EU escalates row with Gambia over expelled migrants. The EU could tighten visa requirements for Gambians following Bajul's refusal to accept deportees from Germany. Expert says Gambia's decision to reject its citizens might not be without wider consequences. The European Union is mulling over Gambia's decision to deny landing permits to flights carrying Gambian deportees from EU countries, particularly Germany. According to initial plans, the first batch of failed Gambian asylum seeker was expected to arrive in Banjul, Gambia's capital, on the 1st of September, but an official from Gambia's foreign ministry responsible for diaspora affairs told local media that Gambia's new position is not to accept requests for deportations. Gambia has cited security concerns and the inability to reintegrate as a reason for its decision.
In our next story, global solidarity to eradicate poverty. The International Day of Charity on 5 September yearly was established with the objective of sensitizing and mobilizing people, NGOs, and stakeholders all around the world to help others through volunteer and philanthropic activities. The date of 5 September was chosen in order to commemorate the anniversary of the passing away of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979 for work undertaken in the struggle to overcome poverty and distress, which also constitutes a threat to peace. For over 45 years, she ministered to the poor, sick, orphaned, and dying, while guiding the missionaries of charity's expansion, first in India and then in other countries, including hospices and homes for the poorest and homeless. Mother Teresa died on September 5, 1997, at the age of 87.
South Africa's top court dismisses a bid to postpone local election. South Africa's top court dismissed an application by the Electoral Commission to postpone local elections due on the 27th of October 2021, court documents showed on Friday. The judgment is a blow to the ruling African National Congress, which supported the postponement and has struggled to register thousands of councillors expected to contest the municipal election. In 2016, the party was hammered in local government elections, losing cities such as Johannesburg to rival opposition parties in the ANC's worst faring since sweeping to power in South Africa's first democratic vote in 1994. This time, the polls will test support for the ANC following the coronavirus pandemic and South Africa's worst civil unrest in years in July, triggered by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma after he failed to appear before an anti-corruption inquiry.
In our next story, WHO and Germany open hub for pandemic and epidemic intelligence in Berlin. To better prepare and protect the world from global disease threats, Her Excellency German Federal Chancellor Dr. Angela Merkel and Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, World Health Organization Director General, inaugurated the new WHO hub for pandemic and epidemic intelligence based in Berlin. The WHO hub, which is receiving an initial investment of $100 million from the Federal Republic of Germany, will harness broad and diverse partnerships across many professional disciplines and the latest technology to link the data, tools, and communities of practice so that actionable data and intelligence are shared for the common good. The hub is part of WHO's Health Emergencies Program and will be a new collaboration of countries and partners worldwide, driving innovations to increase availability of key data, develop state-of-the-art analytic tools and predictive models for risk analysis, and link communities of practice around the world.
My son was one of the 2,000 killed by cholera in Nigeria. Yahanusu Ribolo has been grieving for her 7-year-old son, Ismail, in her one-bedroom house on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. He died of cholera 3 weeks ago. Ms. Lawal and her husband, a former, tried unsuccessfully to manage the disease at home as they couldn't afford to take her to the hospital. He is among the 2,000 people who have died from cholera since the start of the year. As the world grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, Nigeria is struggling to deal with the deadly outbreak of cholera. Nigeria is a cholera endemic country, according to experts, with outbreaks occurring almost every year, especially during the rainy season. But this year's outbreak is seen as particularly worrisome.
Truly saddening news. In the last of our top stories, Africa, a new partnership for wildlife conservation in the Okavango Basin. Diamond conglomerate De Beers has signed a 5-year partnership with the National Geographic Society to preserve the rich biodiversity of the Okavango Basin, which straddles Central and Southern Africa. The partnership comes at a time when this African wildlife refuge is threatened by oil development. Over the years, the National Geographic Society has become a key player in the preservation of biodiversity in Africa, thanks in part to its National Geographic Wild Television channel. Over the next 5 years, National Geographic and De Beers will enhance wildlife conservation by focusing on the long-term preservation of wildlife corridors for the movement and proliferation of threatened species. In addition to climate change, human activities are the main threat to biodiversity in the Okavango Delta. The wetland, teeming with life, is also home to oil deposits that Namibia and Botswana want to exploit to boost their economies. In fact, the governments of both countries have granted 2 35,000 square kilometer oil concessions to Reconnaissance Africa, a company based in Vancouver, Canada. For many environmental organizations active in the region, oil drilling will be detrimental to wildlife and local populations. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories here on Africa Good Morning. We have so much more coming to you right after the break.
Baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Political analyst and the Afrobarometer national investigator Christy Kilder talks about the progress of countries in the region regarding Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Have a look.
Joining us is Christy Kilder. He is a political analyst in Namibia and also one of the Afrobarometer's national investigators. Good day, Christy, and welcome.
Good day.
Christy, in a nutshell, please explain to us what is the Afrobarometer and also what is Sustainable Development Goal.
Okay, so the Afrobarometer is a Pan-African network of companies and institutions that regularly conducts a survey with common themes on a number of issues, including democracy, governance, the economy, public policy, and does so across the continent since 1999. So we've got about 20 odd years of survey research. Round 9 is going into field in the next month or so. The Afrobarometer has recently been transformed into a non-profit organization based in Ghana, Africa. Yes, and the Sustainable Development Goals are the goals that the world has adopted to help us measure our improvements towards a set of common goals, I think 17 of them. And in this exercise, Afrobarometer has used its data to try and gauge the extent to which we've been moving towards achieving these goals. Not all of them, because we don't have data for all of them. And Afrobarometer is certainly not a survey that has been designed to measure these goals, but it's our attempt. Afrobarometer conducts these surveys amongst ordinary Africans, and thus we regard ourselves as the voice of ordinary Africans. So in this exercise, we're trying to ask how would normal Africans assess the progress of their governments towards achieving these UN goals.
Okay, we can't compare the country's progress, each country's progress with another. But when you take a look at the individual countries, which of those countries for you have stood out in terms of their progress?
Well, I think what we need to understand is that this is not an index. It's not a standardized way of saying or measuring the extent to which countries have moved along the same trajectory. So with, for example, the World Transparency Index or any of these other indexes that exist, it's a standardized score where you position countries and you can say, well, this one is in place number 30 versus place number 10, and you know that 10 is better than 30 would be. In this exercise, we're not trying to measure how countries compare to each other, but we're trying to compare how countries have moved towards achieving these goals within their own parameters. So it's an important thing to understand, because in some places, countries look as if they've done really bad in the sense that they haven't moved anywhere, but they still would score higher than others that has simply started from further back. So what we're trying to do is to say, how far have these countries gone towards achieving these goals? The one country, of course, and they always stand out in the African context, and especially the Southern African context, is Botswana. Botswana has just been around the top performers or performing countries for as long as, I suppose, we've done these surveys. And it's interesting because when Botswana gained its independence in 1966, it was among the top, I think, the 5 most poor countries in the world. So it has and always has been sort of driving itself towards this top position. So, for example, to give you an idea, when it comes to the poverty indicators, Botswana has scored favorably, either having no change or making progress on the three poverty indicators we use: no poverty or zero hunger. Sorry, the two. Zero hunger consists of the frequency with which people have never gone without food, or the frequency going without food many or always. So in that sense, Botswana stands out. Eswatini has done worse. Lesotho has done worse. South Africa has done worse. And Namibia has done worse. So Botswana is the only country in SADC, really, when it comes to the goals around hunger and poverty, that is making progress.
And yes?
So the issue is not that Botswana is doing better than these other countries. It's the only country that in the last 5 years has improved in the numbers moving towards that goal for that country.
Christy, and in terms of areas where one can still improve a lot, what does the data say?
Well, I think one of the issues that stand out, for example, is the issue of employment. I think it's a really, really difficult issue to solve. In the case of Namibia, for example, we see that the country has made progress on environmental goals. That has not been replicated by all the others. I think Zimbabwe has done some progress. South Africa has done some progress. So in terms of that, and maybe it's got to do with the indicators that we're using, but I think unemployment is going to be the big issue. In some countries, inequality is not that big an issue, but it certainly is an issue in Namibia. I think it's certainly an issue in South Africa. South Africa, for example, has only made progress on two issues, both related to climate change. On all the other indicators, the country has either stayed the same or remains or gotten worse. So if I can pick another Namibian issue, for example, and look at the extent to which we've moved forward, Namibia, we've said, is decreased in terms of ethnic groups, of people feeling their ethnic group is being treated unfairly. So in terms of identity and how identity groups have been treated, I think that is a big issue that Namibia has made progress on. South Africa, for example, let me just check quickly. South Africa hasn't made the same progress. In other countries, of course, that kind of issue doesn't exist because of its colonial history. So it's the region, I think the common problems are the problems around poverty, the problems around employment, especially employment amongst the youth. And then the easiest thing, I think, because we measure awareness of environmental issues rather than seeing what countries have done. So we're measuring the extent to which people feel they understand climate change and the negative consequences associated with climate change. On those two issues, most of the countries have moved forward.
Christy, thank you very much for your time. We can talk about this a lot more, and we probably will be bothering you in future for more insight. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the good work the Afrobarometer is doing.
Yes, I have to say I've got very little to do with this, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Christy.
Confused or worried about symptoms during the COVID-19 pandemic? If you only have a runny nose or are sneezing, you may have a cold or allergies. Have you lost your sense of taste or smell? Are you experiencing shortness of breath? These are common symptoms of COVID-19. Coughing, fatigue and fever are all symptoms of both flu and COVID-19. If you have a temperature above 38 degrees Celsius or 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, call your local healthcare provider or hotline for medical advice and ask whether you need a COVID-19 test. If you have any COVID-19 symptoms or are waiting for test results, stay home and isolate from other members of your household. Drink fluids and eat well. Always wear a mask if you're in the same room as others. If you test positive for COVID-19, follow your healthcare provider's advice. If at any time you experience a danger sign like difficulty breathing, chest pain, confusion, loss of speech or mobility, don't wait. Seek medical care immediately. Remember, you can prevent colds, flu and COVID-19 by following a few basic precautions. Stay safe and protect each other. We're in this together. Know your risk, lower your risk.
Happy Monday, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning. Now, I saw a meme on Twitter, and it said, if the Monday is blue, you must also show up blue.
Yes, we must work together. We'll just coordinate them.
Right now, we are going to cross over to Zambia, where Master Sichula is ready to give us the news on the ground. Good morning, Master Sichula. How are you?
Africa, good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing there?
Right now, I am celebrating with the people of Zambia, particularly the women of Zambia, because the first female National Assembly Speaker has been appointed. Halala, love to see it.
Wow, it's a great news for the women folk in the country, because it is the first time that the Zambian parliament has elected a female candidate. There have been about 7 members, speakers of the National Assembly. In the middle there, that is Nelly Muti. She's a lawyer by profession. Then on the right hand side, that's the Vice President, Mrs. Mutadena Romango. Then on our left, that's the President, President Hakainde Hichilema. It was on Friday that she was approved, or she presented herself to President Hakainde Hichilema. So basically, what happened is that the governing party, the UPND, they had nominated her to be the speaker for the new session of the parliament. The opposition Patriotic Front did not nominate anyone, so she went through unopposed. Before this, she has been providing legal services to President Hakainde Hichilema whilst in opposition. So what it is that she is the speaker, and she has got 2 deputies. One of her deputies, Attractat Shangano, is a former Gwembe member of parliament. She's also female. That's her in the picture there on the immediate left of the right of the Vice President, Madam Inonge Wina. Then the other second deputy speaker is Mr. Moses Moyo, who is an independent member of parliament in the eastern part of Zambia, to be specific, in Luangeni constituency. So these are the speakers that are going to oversee the session of the 12th session of the National Assembly for the next 5 years. So basically, that's what has been happening from the women folk, and it is indeed a great day for the women in Zambia that she has become the first one to be the Speaker of the National Assembly.
All right, now sticking with the theme of getting straight down to business, President Hakainde Hichilema has named his cabinet, bringing an end to a debate over his preparedness to run national affairs 2 weeks after taking over the government on the 24th of August 2021. Tell us more about that.
Actually, the debate is still on because as by yesterday, last evening, the announcement that was supposed to be made was not made. The State House just issued a statement. Actually, it is President Hakainde Hichilema who issued a post on his Twitter account saying that he's probably going to make the appointments this week, and there was no specific day as to when is going to do that. So it is still the wait and see kind of arrangement. A number of people do not understand why, but from experts who have served in government, they are saying it is a tedious and cumbersome process to come up with a cabinet, more especially that you are the Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is holding the office of president for the first time, and most of the people that he has with, they need to pass a lot of tests. For instance, security checks, as well as who are these people? What capacity do they have to serve in the different ministerial position? So it is indeed a great period of time that is having to make sure that the team that he picks is something that they're going to deliver according to his expectations. But also, other experts are saying, because remember, the UPND came into office through an alliance kind of arrangement. There are about 13 political parties that have joined forces with the UPND. Nevertheless, some of these political parties, they do not have even a member of parliament, not even a councillor or at local government level. But that cannot be taken away from them to say they did not contribute anything to the alliance to win. So probably there's this talk to say, okay, who is going to be where and so on and so forth. But besides that, the president has got 8 positions to nominate, 8 members of parliament whom he can nominate. Because in Zambia, a member of parliament is the only person who can be appointed as a cabinet minister. So those are some of the reasons experts are saying. But this week, President Hakainde Hichilema has assured that he's going to make those cabinet appointments.
All right.
All right, the Chipolopolo boys will take on the pitch tomorrow to battle it out against Tunisia in the 2022 Qatar World Cup qualifier. Please tell us about this.
Yes, the Zambia national team is coming from a 2-1 victory against Mauritania away, and they are coming into tomorrow's game against the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia on a high, considering that they won away against Mauritania, that had maintained a clean sheet. Without a defeat for about 18 matches. So the defeat against the Chipolopolo on Friday was something that has given the Western Championship team a morale boost as they get into this match. But one of the sad things about this match is that for the Chipolopolo, their top two players, Patson Daka and Enoch Mwepu, are not in this team, considering of the coronavirus restrictions imposed by the United Kingdom government. And Zambia is on the red list of countries that are high risk of the virus. So those two players are out, and Western Championship has to make do of what he has to ensure that the team gets probably the 3 points and be in a pole position to command the group.
All right, all the best to Chipolopolo. Thank you very much, Mike, for bringing us the news from Zambia.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning. Do have a blessed week. Thank you.
We certainly hope to have a blessed week, but prior to that, we hope to have a blessed day, especially when it comes to the weather. Let's have a look at the forecast up next.
When the world has safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines, how can we make sure they reach the people that need them most? Today, there are many vaccines in development. Most will fail. For those that could succeed, governments are under pressure to secure supplies for their populations. If governments compete for vaccines, most countries could miss out. This is not only bad for countries that cannot secure their own supplies, it's bad for us all, as no one is safe until everyone is safe. The COVAX pillar aims to ensure that every country gets fair and equitable access to eventual COVID-19 vaccines. It does this by acting as an insurance policy, with the largest portfolio of vaccine candidates in the world. Wealthier countries have a greater chance of gaining access to successful vaccines. And by pooling their buying power, rather than competing against one another, they enable investment in factories. So more doses are available as soon as a vaccine becomes available. The COVAX pillar is founded on the principle of equitable access. This means any country, regardless of their ability to pay, has the same access to vaccines. By supporting the development and manufacturing of these vaccines, wealthy countries increase their chances of getting COVID-19 vaccines and ensure the rest of the world gets access too. Ending the pandemic as quickly as possible will take a global effort. We need as many doses as possible, as fast as possible, as soon as a safe and effective vaccine becomes available. 2 billion doses would be enough to vaccinate healthcare workers and other high-risk groups. If we start now, we can save hundreds of thousands of lives, not to mention trillions of dollars. It's not about one country versus another. It's about one world protected.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to dive straight into your economic news stories for the day. And we start off in Mzansi, South Africa, as business activity stabilized in August after unrest. South African private sector activity stabilized in August after a sharp downturn in July amid civil unrest and COVID-19 lockdown measures despite widespread supply chain issues, a survey showed on Friday. This improvement was due to much softer falls in output, new orders and inventories coupled with a renewed renewed increase in headcount. With lockdown restrictions easing to level 3, the economy recuperating from social unrest, several firms registered an uptick in sales that helped them to expand output, said IHS market economist David Owen. In July, riots broke out in several parts of South Africa after former President Jacob Zuma handed himself in to start a 15-month jail term for contempt of court. The unrest swiftly degenerated into looting, which destroyed hundreds of businesses and killed over 300 people. Owen added that demand and activity fell again in August, suggesting it would take several months for businesses to fully recover from the downturn, one that IHS market estimates would reduce GDP growth by 0.3% in 2021.
Mediclinic to procure renewable energy in a $152 million deal. Private healthcare group Mediclinic International said on Friday its Southern Africa division had agreed to procure renewable electricity through energy exchange in a deal worth up to $152 million. Procuring renewable energy, specifically electricity, forms part of the group's strategy, which has set an ambitious target to become carbon neutral by 2030, South Africa's biggest private hospital group by market value said. South Africa, the continent's worst polluter, emits millions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year, much of it from coal-fired power plants that still provide most of its energy. Climate considerations have become a greater concern for investors, with some pulling out of local multi-billion-dollar coal-fired power plant projects and halting direct funding.
In our next story, we are in Ivory Coast as Italian oil giant Eni makes huge offshore discovery. Italian oil company Eni announced a huge offshore find of oil and gas resources in Ivory Coast. The discovery comes after a $185 million investment in energy exploration by two foreign firms. Eni's deepwater exploration led to the discovery at 3,445 meters deep of the field that could contain as many as 2 billion barrels of oil and 51 million cubic meters of natural gas. Thomas Kamara, the Ivorian energy minister, said the discovery would greatly increase Ivory Coast's proven reserves in the coming years. Ivory Coast has identified 51 oil fields. Of those, only 4 are in production, whereas 26 remain in exploration and 21 are untapped. Eni is one of the largest foreign oil and gas producers operating in Africa. The company has valuable assets in Angola, Libya, and Nigeria. It is also active in Egypt and Mozambique.
South Africa, Eskom to invest $7.3 billion in solar and wind farms over 9 years. South Africa state-owned company Eskom intends to invest $7.3 billion to begin its energy transition over the next 9 years. The funds will be used to build concentrated solar power and photovoltaic plants as well as wind farms. The South African state-owned utility is planning an ambitious program to develop new installed clean energy capacity. South Africa's largest electricity producer will implement a $7.3 billion investment plan. Eskom is expected to raise some of the money from the development finance institutions, while it is already burdened with $27.5 billion of debt incurred to complete the financing of its coal-fired power station. In the first phase of the plan, which will be implemented between 2022 and 2023, a number of solar or photovoltaic plants will be built on a site of former coal-fired power plant stations.
In the last of our economic news stories, Mauritius plays key role in fostering Africa growth. A new report titled Facilitating Growth, Employment and Prosperity in Africa, which examines Mauritius's role as a leading international financial center, has found that 4.2 million jobs in mainland Africa were supported by foreign investment mediated by Mauritius. The report, produced by Capital Economics for the Economic Development Board of Mauritius, found that 9% of all foreign direct investment into mainland Africa was mediated by Mauritius, representing $82 billion, which generated about $6 billion in tax revenues for African governments each year. The African countries whose employment benefited from investment mediated by Mauritius included Kenya, where 1.6 million jobs were supported, Nigeria 470,000, Tanzania 250,000, South Africa 240,000, Cote d'Ivoire 200,000, and Cameroon, Ethiopia, and Ghana 120,000 jobs each. Wow, listen, if the global economy is a dating game, Mauritius is Africa's ultimate wingman. We love to see it. Coming up next is your economic indicators. For those of you who've been following the show, you know that Ari Hogard and myself support Western Province Rugby, and I have the added burden of being an Arsenal supporter, which means generally our mental health is not the best on Mondays. But I'm sending all the love and light to Ari as he delivers this weekend's sporting news. Good morning, Ari. How are you?
Yes, a very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, I can tell you in Cape Town, all the wine estates was well represented yesterday with all the Cape Townians, all the sport rugby fans went to the wine region, I think. And yeah, it's not good for Western Province Rugby. The Currie Cup final will be played against the Bulls, will be between the Bulls and the Sharks in Pretoria this coming Saturday. So well done to the Bulls and the Sharks. But let's start off with some football. And the English Premier League not playing at the moment because there's lots of qualifying rounds for the Qatar 2022 World Cup football that's happening. 214 teams that's trying to qualify for this elite tournament. And the big news from last night was actually controversial in that the game between Brazil and Argentina, one of the high-profile games last night, was abandoned just a few minutes into the game with Brazilian health officials objecting to 3 players being on the field that didn't go into quarantine. Apparently, according to Brazilian authorities, there were 4 players that lied about where they've been the last 14 days in England. And so that match was abandoned dramatically and not sure if it's going to be replayed. Just a few days ago, Argentina in the first qualifying game beat Venezuela 3-1. And Brazil was too strong for Chile 1-0. But that was the big news last night. Brazil-Argentina, that game abandoned after just a few minutes. Earlier in the week, on Friday, it was South Africa and Zimbabwe that played to a 0-0 draw in Harare. That was for Southern African interest. And then Kenya and Rwanda also 1-1 draw draw for them. And a great win for Namibia last night or yesterday. They beat Togo. A brilliant win for them, 1-0. A great win for Namibia. And maybe two other results from Europe. It was Italy and Switzerland that played to a 0-0 draw. And then a massive win, a great win for Israel. They surprised by beating Austria by 5-2. So that is some of the qualifying continues. South Africa play Ghana in the next game tomorrow. On to some tennis news. It's the US Open tennis that's happening at the moment. And there's in the women's side, there was the big seeds all fell out. It was Ashley Barty, the number 1 seed, that fell out, and also Naomi Osaka earlier lost. Naomi Osaka lost to Leylah Fernandez. She's just 19 years old from Canada. Looks like a new sensation again. And Leylah Fernandez also last night had a great win. She beat Angelique Kerber in her round of 16, and she's through to the next round. In the men's tennis, men's section, it is Lloyd Harris of South Africa that's still doing great. It's his best result ever in a major. He reached the round of 16, the 4th round, and he's through, and he will play American Riley Opelka, the 22nd seed. That will be some later today. And also a young sensation in the men's section, it is 18-year-old Spanish Carlos Alcaraz. You can remember that name, Carlos Alcaraz. He's just 18 years old, and he's through to the semifinals as well of the US Open in the men's section. And the number 1 and number 2 seed, Daniel Medvedev and Novak Djokovic, also still in the tournament. On to some Formula One racing news. It was a big day for Max Verstappen yesterday. That was the Dutch Grand Prix that took place for the first time since 1985 in Zandvoort in the Netherlands. And it was Max Verstappen with a full house of 65,000 fans. There in the background you can see he won. That was a dream win for him, winning at home. Very tight race against the rivalry, and it's very competitive between Max Verstappen at the moment and Lewis Hamilton. But a good win for Max Verstappen at home by winning the Grand Prix yesterday. He moves ahead in the championship points. He's now 3 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And the next Grand Prix coming up is the Italian Grand Prix. That is the super fast Monza track. That is this coming weekend. So it's not a long break for the racing drivers. This coming weekend, they're into Italy at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. And on to some golf news. Last night it was the conclusion of the Tour Championship. They played at the East Lake Golf Course in Atlanta. It's the biggest prize money in golf, a massive amount of money that can be won. And it was won by Patrick Cantley of the USA. He won for his first prize, the season-ending tournament, $15 million. You heard right, 15 $15 million was the first prize. And he beat John Rahm by 1 shot. He was 21 under. John Rahm of Spain came in at 20 under, and he won $5 million. And KJM was on 16 under par, $4 million. So a massive amount of money that was won there. Patrick Cantley of the USA winning on a score of 21 under, $15 million for him. Then on the ladies tour, just really quickly, the Solheim Cup is being played at the moment, and today it will be the finals for that is the ladies, the women's series Europe that plays against the United States, the Solheim Cup. The singles will be today. Europe lead at the moment by 9 points to 7. And just to conclude, some cricket news. It's a great test match happening in England. It is India that's touring England at the moment, the 4th test at the Oval taking place. And it's set up for a brilliant 5th and final day today. England need to make 368 to win. That will be a record, chasing the biggest amount of runs they ever chased in a test match. If they achieve that, overnight there's 77 without loss. So it's set up for a great day of cricket today. They still need 291 with all 10 wickets in hand. And also on the one day in the 50-over game at the moment, it is South Africa that tours Sri Lanka. South Africa won the second one yesterday by 67 runs. The series now is 1-1 between South Africa and Sri Lanka, the 50-over game. Unfortunately, Rabada is injured, so not sure if he's going to play the next one. The third game will be tomorrow between South Africa and Sri Lanka. That's all the sports news. Lots happening all over the globe, and hopefully your sports team did better than the sports teams that myself and Ashwin support. But hopefully this coming weekend it will be better for all of us. So until we talk again on Friday with a preview of the weekend sport, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ari. And you know what? I checked our horoscopes. I think it's a good week for us. I really do. This is Still Africa. Good morning. After the break, we'll be back with your headlines.
Tell me, baby, do you like the way I move? Come on, get your dance on. We can have as much fun as you can possibly get. With your dance on. Come on, baby, let's get this game on. Let me see it. Let's get this game on. Oh, yeah. Get it started.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. As promised, it's time for your headlines. Tigray aid situation worsening by the day, warn UN humanitarians. Heavy gunfire heard in Guinea capital Conakry. Worst Tripoli fighting in a year shows limits of Libya peace push. Somalia's Puntland sends troops to fight al-Shabaab in neighboring state. South African business activity stabilized in August after unrest. In soccer, several Qatar 2022 World Cup qualifying games were played over the weekend. All right, those have been our stories, and we'd also like to wish one of our co-hosts, Naledi Lady Ne Kunene, a fantastic birthday, 6 September. Make it count.
All right. Now, we do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website. It's called One Up To. Please check that out for more content. And on that note, it's all our love and all our light.
Until tomorrow, Swera Jaganaka.